The Venus Project, TeamSpeak Seminar, July 3, 2011. Part 1 of 2.
Will patents, trademarks, intellectual property rights, copyrights, and other such tools be used in the resource-based economy, or will it become obsolete? Will there be complete free flow of information?
It'll be completely obsolete. There'll be a free flow of information.
Yeah, no proprietary rights of any kind. Will there be a campaign to republish your books and DVDs across the world? How can global teams help with that? Yes, right now is the best that money can't buy. And there are several countries that are translating it and trying to get it published in their country or trying to self-publish themselves. We haven't put this book up free on the internet, although some people have. We just didn't take it down, we just left it there. But we haven't put it up for free because this is what's helping support us right now. Unfortunately, we do need that. Okay, should global teams try to contact someone for the movie industry? Are there any guidelines? Yeah, we're working with our team, the media team. If you can get in touch with Craig at the media team, we are working on contacting not only people from the movie industry, but other people as well. And we're developing materials to send out to people for this right now.
We also have to remember this. In order to sell it to the movie industry, you have to tell them that there are many people throughout the world, millions, that now know about the Venus Project. If you fail to do that, you will not attract their interest. You must emphasize the number of people, approximately, that are interested.
Yeah, we'll have to put that in the material that we send out. That's good. In my country, in order to reach politicians, I think we went over this before, and present them the Venus Project, you have to register as a non-governmental organization. Do you have any suggestions on that, and what name should we pick? Does it matter if we register as the Zeitgeist Movement? I think we did mention this before. We did address this question, but it's still on this list now. We do have guidelines if you want to work with the Venus Project as a nonprofit organization. We do have guidelines, and we can send them to you if you email us directly. But we wouldn't do it through another organization, whether it's the Zeitgeist Movement or any other organization. You'd have to be a separate nonprofit and affiliated with the Venus Project and working with us directly, just like any other team, actually. Specifics of the mainframe computer systems, how will they operate, and how will we make them hack-proof, the mainframe computer systems?
Hacking is getting some kind of advantage for yourself. There's no need for that under the Venus Project. Hacking will not serve the interest of any individual. It'll retard the interest.
For educational purposes, what about a 3D kind of online game like Second Life, where you can show how the Venus Project would work? Andrew's organizing this, so I'm going to let you answer this one, Andrew.
One of the projects on the Global Activism page of the Venus Project's website that we've planned for a long time now is the creation of various computer games based on the Venus Project. I'm actually going through the process at the moment, along with many other projects, of developing up the game documents for the first of these games, which I'm working with Roxanne on developing it to make sure that it's within the teachings, if you like, of the Venus Project, that it's all within the bounds of that. These are big projects. Normally you would have 20 or 30 people in a game company working on these projects. At the moment, we don't have any real professional game programmers or developers or game engine developers and things like this on our database that so far have proved to be able to take those jobs on. So it's something that it could be a continued development, and as and when people come along that have got the skills to actually take that forward, then we will do so. But just like with the city design, ideally it'd be lovely if everyone could jump in and help out with the city designs, but there are set ways of doing these things. You'd need architects, engineers, etc. And there's certain procedures that you have to go through to produce things like this. It's very difficult to do across the internet as well. So the paramount importance is to get the right kind of team behind those projects before you can actually produce anything. So yes, they are in early development. and we'll continue development as more and more people come through.
Okay, next question. Thanks, Andrew. What if a country imploded like Greece? How do you exactly bring people to implement the aims of the Venus Project?
You still go on teaching people about it, how it works, and build up your organization so you have many members. That'll make the transition easier. The fewer the members, the more difficulty you're going to have.
Yeah, we have to get the information out there, otherwise they'll continue doing the same processes as they do.
Part 2 of 2.
Okay, go ahead.
The survey gives us the information we need. We have to know how many cases there are of heart disease, cancer, in order to determine what hospitals need and how many hospitals to build. We cannot do that unless we conduct surveys. Therefore, nothing will be based on personal opinions. They'll be based upon findings or information.
This person is asking, do we need a computable model for resource-based economy? Since we strive to cybernation, where is it? Do we have a computer model of the resource-based economy?
I have a pretty good idea of what we're going to do in various stages. But right now, to put out the specifics may threaten our future because of patents. People will take out patents if you give them specific designs for solving problems. That will not enable us to build things if they patent our ideas. We can't even use our own ideas. I think if you attend some of the tours, those of you that can, you will learn in detail exactly how we intend to manage various aspects of the Venus Project.
We are going to be working on a lot of things. I think Andrew can address this in terms, and you may be wanting to do that after this, in terms of the projects we're going to be taking on, if people aren't aware of them. Do you want to address that now, Andrew, or maybe afterwards?
Yeah, sure. Go over that quickly. If you go onto the Venus Project's website under Get Involved Global Activism Teams, you'll see a list of all of the different teams that we have currently that we're developing. And there's also a brief description of some of the projects there that will be getting done. There are lots of projects that we're going to be working on, including things like, for example, the first city design. We'll actually be developing the preliminary drawings for the first city design. These drawings could then be taken forward by a country or a sort of collation of organisations working towards this direction to actually do the construction drawings for these. Obviously all that depends on later funding as to whether we can get a city built, but the idea is to have the drawings made. We'll also be working on several projects such as the game. This would be a commercial enterprise for the simple reason is that the Venus Project needs funding. At some point we're going to need resources to be able to do the things that we want to do with the Venus Project. So for example, to do the Venus Project movie is going to cost a phenomenal amount of money to do it properly, to make a really high impact movie. That's resources that we don't have right now. To do a computer game is going to cost resources that we don't have right now. To do many of the projects that we're looking at doing over the coming years, especially so with the city, huge amounts of resources that we don't have access to. So we need to start looking as an organisation and as supporters and advocates of this organisation at how we're going to develop the funding for this project to be able to do those projects. And that's something we'll be concentrating heavily on over the next few years.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, continuing with the questions, won't teachers who teach in schools, universities feel their jobs to be repetitive? How will teaching be implemented?
Various subjects will be televised. Instead of the teacher repeating the first on history, mathematics, or any other subject, whatever is repeated will be recorded and presented. The teacher will not have to be present. In other words, that can be automated. The question period also can be automated.
Okay, this person's making a statement that they feel that genes, not only environment, but genes shape the physical appearance of people because people might project like a... Okay, this person is really not asking us a question. He's making a statement essentially that he feels that genes play a big role and that things have progressed since Skinner's radical behaviorism. Now we have neuroscience, and we know the internal processes are important too. What's your opinion in terms of nurture and nature, or genes playing a large role in behavior?
The genes have a lot to do with the internal organs, the shape of your nose, the color of your eyes, the quality of the brain tissue, the neuronal arrangements. But the genes do not touch value systems. You cannot inherit greed. You cannot inherit anger. This is part of a reflex action in the given culture of scarcity. In other words, we have propensities to act a certain way under certain conditions. If those conditions do not occur, then those propensities do not occur. So I still accept the fact that environment is the major cause of our facial expressions, our attitudes toward love, our ambitions, the clothing we wear, the people we admire have to do with the environment we're reared in. The genetic aspects are minor.
Okay, since the Venus Project can provide a new standardized way of living in the entire Earth, don't you think that we could also lose some of the past-present cultural diversity in the process?
Cultural diversity is like a person searching for answers, and they come up with different answers not based upon research. I'm not interested in cultural diversity. I'm interested in diversity that comes from effort and work put out to try to understand the working process that enables a person to become creative or become a gangster or a serial killer. There are processes which we have to learn to eliminate and overcome in order to build a world in which people can react with one another in more sensible ways. Traditional diversity has no meaning at all unless you bring out specific diversities that you're interested in understanding.
This person, too, is giving the example, I think it's the same person, it's the next paragraph, music and religious, and
What about it?
as the diversities, examples of diversities, artistically, she's talking about, she mentioned a quote here, I'm just going to go on with this topic, from Starman.
Yes, no meaning.
Yeah, what is it? I know, but we'll address it. What is it like up there, Starman? It's beautiful. Not like this, but it's beautiful. There's only one language, one law, one people. There's no war, no hunger, and strong do not victimize the weak.
How do you attain that? What does that consist of exactly? Not words. Those are words arranged in a sequence that might appeal to many people that don't understand a process level. You have to describe it.
Well, it goes on, and this is what her point here. We are very civilized, but we have lost something. You are all so very different, so very alive. I will miss the cooks, the singing, and the dancing and eating.
I don't think you have read most of our literature and understood it. Why don't you bring it up at the meetings? In other words, our literature covers all that stuff real well. There's no need teaching people speculative ideas unless you head it as speculative ideas or write an article but head it as science fiction. But all the research done will be published in the future for you to extract from it whatever you're capable of extracting from it. Not all people can extract information. They're not trained to do so. You have to be trained to know that which is relevant and that which has not been tested.
And we're aiming for one world in the way that there would be no boundaries and people would share resources and work with one another and travel without passports or anything like that. When that happens, you can share your cultural diversity and everybody can take part of it. So it's not just one country that has the ability to do art in a certain way. Anybody could do that.
There's no such thing as cultural diversity. There are opinions outside of the box. Bring up your opinions, your ideas, but bring them up as opinions. Say you've done little or no work on the subject. When you do a lot of experimental work, You can arrive at certain conclusions, but they have to be based upon physical reference. If you don't have a physical reference for your word, drop it.
And I think this is the same person because they're going on with the idea of being afraid of a brave new world, losing cultural diversity.
That's your own projection, sir. This brave new world is your own projection. The Venus Project has nothing it installs without having a verifiable base for it. Before we even build our cities, we study the positive gains of the cities and the negative effects. Even if we build a dam, we study the positive effects and the negative effects of a dam. And you have to choose between that and the existence and security of the world's population.
How do you think the actual planet overpopulation could impact the Venus Project stages, the progress?
Only through education. The planet can support so many people. If we have a population far in excess of what the planet can support, you're going to have riots, territorial disputes, and all the other problems common to a scarcity-oriented society.
Is the UN aware of the Venus Project? If yes, then what's their take on it? We haven't made a presentation to the UN. We have no idea if they're aware of it. We were at some event, the World Charter event, the 10th anniversary of the World Charter event. We were invited to that because Jacque happened to speak at another event, and everyone who spoke there was invited to this 10th anniversary. And we had no platform as to what the Venus Project was. We were broken off into different rooms. This was interesting. And they put me and Jacque in a room that talked about city development and city plans for the future. And Jacque started to speak and they cut him off. So we have no idea what they're aware of. Somebody was questioning if everybody would put $50,000 up for the first city, could we do it that way?
I don't know. Check it out.
Yeah, we have to organize that. We're really not starting it as a real estate development opportunity, so to speak. In a world we are immersed into work of our passion, wouldn't most of us be too busy to care, bother about necessary activities like reproduction? Carrying a kid in the womb for 9 months sounds tedious, thus globally affecting us.
I suppose the future will have those that want children and those that do not. I can't answer that. There will be people of varying reactions to the situation. I cannot predict that.
I think the value stressed today for most women is to get married and have a family and have children. I don't think we'd be stressing that as much in the future. And even today, statistically, the more educated the family is, the less children they have. I think people would be so interested in so many things and have options for so many things, they may have less children. If people will do things for honor, wouldn't honor become the new money, like incentive?
They don't do things for honor. They do things because it makes the world better for them and everyone else. The word honor is an old, early term attempting to describe some aspects of human behavior. It is nondescript.
And there wouldn't be any awards, there wouldn't be any Nobel Prizes, there wouldn't be anything that people would be honored for in terms of the way they are today.
They do the best they can to uphold the future development of society. They don't do it because of personal gain.
Yeah, no medals, no money. They do it so they can see that what they contribute goes directly into society and makes people's lives better and makes their own lives better. Please, could you explain how the concept of relativity correlates with the concepts of specialist and generalist as Jacque uses them?
When I use the term generalist, I mean a person that knows quite a bit about the earth, the history of civilization, anthropology, sociology, and the behavioral sciences, and the history of civilization, and the history of technology. They have to know something about that in order to be able to participate in the development of a new society.
And your concept of relativity, how does that correlate with specialists and generalists?
I don't know how you use the word relativity. I use the word generalist, so they know quite a bit about the situation before they offer their so-called opinions. They can only participate if they're able to. When you have a breakdown in the electronic gear, you don't call a plumber. You call a plumber when you have breakdown in the water system or any aspect of the bathroom. When you have a problem in health, you consult a health specialist. In the future, people will be generalists. They'll have overview knowledge of the history of civilization, the Earth's resources, and they'll be connected to all the labs, and the labs will develop materials that we have a shortage of. In other words, I feel that science and technology, if turned loose and given all the facilities they need to solve a problem, they have been able to solve every problem put to them in the past. But they don't have enough equipment today to trace cancer from many different aspects and heart disease. No lab is that well equipped. During the Venus Project, they will have whatever they need. No more digging up nickels and dimes for studies of heart disease or cancer. They will be given whatever equipment they need.
Has Jacque expanded the concept of oscillation since the 70s lectures? How does oscillation correspond with the scientific method?
Oscillation has to do with predictability. You don't have an oscillation in water supply. You have plenty warnings that come along early, far before the shortage. You have information on soil depletion long before the soil is depleted, so people can be working on aspects of revigorating the soil or designing newer systems. But nothing as surprising as oscillations that occur without people knowing about it. I don't think that that is valid. I believe that we can gather information far in advance of any kind of a problem. We can study tsunamis, their occurrence, what to do to prevent them, and we can build enormous lists of procedural systems to cope with any problem that may occur.
Okay, the next question. Last week, Roxanne mentioned that the Venus Project is a group which advocates a resource-based economy. However, sometimes I hear Jacque make comments like, in the future, when the Venus Project is in place, I'm a little confused as to the semantics of a resource-based economy and the Venus Project, i.e., is the Venus Project a group based in Florida or the name of a future society?
No, we happen to start this in Venus, Florida, and we call it the Venus Project, but it has nothing to do with Venus. We used to call it socio-cyberneering.
I just want to make the distinction that a resource-based economy is part of a total blueprint for a new social design, which Jacque arrived at through his 75 years of study. It's not just a resource-based economy. It's just not the economic portion of it, but it includes the entire spectrum for social development, from education to values to how things would be distributed and manufactured, total city system designs and blueprints for that. We just named it the Venus Project because we're here in Venus, Florida, and it advocates Jacque's lifelong work, which includes a resource-based economy. If that's still confusing, you can let us know. Okay, I think we answered this next one. I'm disabled, use a wheelchair, and have personal assistance 24/7. How can I get the same personal help in a resource-based economy?
And more people with more time than ever. And there are many people that would love to help. Only they cannot afford sometimes to travel to help people. All of that will be facilitated and made available to people. Whether we get help or not, they will be helped by staffs of people that no longer have to go to work in any standard industry. There'll be many more free people than ever, and there'll be much more help than ever advanced in a monetary-based society.
And that goes for the reason why you're in a wheelchair as well. It wouldn't be restricted, the research wouldn't be restricted because of money limitations. In the United States, I don't know about the rest of the world, but they put out little cups in stores to collect money for cancer or cystic fibrosis or heart disease or AIDS. They beg for nickels and dimes, but they don't have to beg. They get millions and billions of dollars when they make armament. It's just awful. And that's the difference between a resource-based economy and the monetary system. The monetary system, the bottom line is money, power, and profit. They don't address people's needs. They address whatever would bring them more profit, whether it's destruction or anything else that's detrimental to the earth. So the resource-based economy really cares about people, and I've said that before. That's the main difference. Who will be responsible for allocating accommodations once the Venus project is implemented?
It's not who will be responsible, it's how our products distributed to people. That's what the person wants to know. There are distribution centers, and if you have a particular need, you put your need in, and that can be made available to you if you're doing research on a program or working on it. But if you just want information, you can go to the library access, or you can refer to your computer at the time for information. But if you really need materials, it'll be given to you without you having to ask for it.
I think they're asking who will be doing that.
There's no who, it's how will that be done.
Will it not be necessary to retain some form of administrative function with regard to investigating accidents that cause injury or death?
Only during the transition from a monetary system to a resource-based economy. There will be problems, lots of them. Our job is problem solving.
If we accept that crime is, in general, will inevitably decrease, as Jacque has already explained, we should also accept that some crime will still occur. How will this be managed?
I still don't understand that question, because every human being is given an opportunity to go to school, to study, whatever they want to study. If there's any kind of aberrant behavior or brain damage, it would show up on many places in the schools. In the early days of attending school, we don't wait till a problem is manifest to deal with it. We can well in advance detect the general values of people and know what is needed. By the people talking about their value system, about the way they think, that tells us how much aberration there is or misinformation in their value system. And we can then design the appropriate system to help them out of those limitations.
We may have that during the transition, but you wouldn't put people in jail or lock them up. You'd help them. Do you ever listen to music or celebrate any holidays, birthdays? No.
No birthdays or holidays. I do not celebrate. They don't mean anything to me. I will celebrate when the world joins together toward a common venture, namely the taking care of the earth and all the people on it. I will celebrate that day.
But I don't think we'd make it a yearly celebration. There's so many new things to do after that. It's just like the beginning of the civilized age. We begin to tackle our problems at that time. Do you listen to music? No, neither of us really listen to music. In the car, I play Jacque's old audio tapes from the 70s and 80s, and we actually work on them then. Do the cities need to be built on flat ground, or can they be built in hilly areas or areas with rivers or ravines?
Cities are not always necessary. We can design one single building called the total enclosure system. Shopping, schools, hospitals, everything in one building. And it could be designed to fit any kind of terrain. It just would be easier during the transition to have flat terrains for the circular cities, which are far more efficient.
A truly efficient culture where most decision-making processes are in the hands of intelligent computers always ensuring the most efficient and correct solutions are employed for the benefit for all mankind sounds very appealing, but many discoveries and inventions have come about quite unintentionally and may never have been discovered were it not for inefficiencies, deprivations, and other seemingly negative factors. Do we not risk losing fortunate accidents, such as discovery of penicillin, if we don't get to make mistakes anymore?
I don't believe anybody makes mistakes. I believe the first man that fooled with nitric acid and glycerin, the building disappeared, so did the guy. And his brother-in-law wrote, don't fool with that stuff. Nobody makes a mistake because you don't know how big to make wings when you're planning a flying machine. In the beginning, nobody knows. Some Frenchman built small wings that he put on his back, and he put his arm through sleeves, and he tried to beat the air, and he jumped off a barn roof and was injured. And this happened continuously until nobody makes a mistake. They try many different things and they come up with things that work and disregard the things that don't work. Some people feel they can beat sensitivity and intelligence into their wives by beating them. In the Arab world, they may beat their wives 2 or 3 times a day because they don't know any other systems. They're not making mistakes, they're not cruel, they're not evil, they just don't know what to do. It's like saying no to drugs. What a stupid remark that was, say no to drugs. You have to develop a system that doesn't require drugs, that people can't make money selling drugs. You have to do away with the monetary system. That's the basic corrupter of all systems. No, I think that the computers, until they're designed to ask appropriate questions, they cannot come up with answers. They have to be designed to scan the environment. For example, if you sit at a table in a restaurant in the future, the menu lights up. Then it scans you. If you're diabetic, by the chips you wear, the food is adjusted to your condition. You don't have accidents. You don't have arbitrary things. You have instruments plugged into the earth under the sea which can detect earthquakes and others far in advance. We will use the best we know of in technology. Now, using the best you know is not the best system. It's the best we have at that time. Systems will never be finalized. We will always learn more about systems and change our values as we grow. There are no final frontiers. I've said that many times. There's no best way to design a computer. They're the best way today that we know of.
Roxanne, could you repeat the question because we didn't get to hear the question, your mic wasn't on.
I was just kind of expanding on the last one to see if he wanted to continue with that. I just mentioned something about, do you think computers will take away the fortunate, he mentioned accidents.
Thank you very much.
If there are any methods that are best to explain to people the principles behind a resource-based economy, because so far people can't seem to get past their own way of thinking, and everyone I've explained it to pretty quickly dismisses it.
Well, that sounds like what occurs continuously. Just remember this. When you drive a horse and wagon and you want to drive an automobile, you have to give up the old giddy-up and you have to learn how to drive a car. In the new society, the old ways will not persist because they will not work. And the new ways you'll have to learn in order to operate in a new society. You get in an elevator in the future and say you're interested in getting off at the 12th floor. And the elevator will let you off. Or you tell the elevator what you're interested in, and it'll stop on the floor that has that kind of information. You can't carry your old values into a new system. If automobiles become self-operating, well, you have to learn that, and retouching the controls in a car will not vary the car's behavior. If you want to fly an airplane, you have to go to an aviation environment. Remember, the old values do not work, or many of them do not work. So you'll have to, in the new environment, there are new values and different methods. You can go to school and learn those new methods and operate more equipment. If you don't do that, you'll remain at a level you were at in the past.
And how would you give people suggestions to explain a resource-based economy to those who reject it?
Read the book. Get them to read. Don't do all the work for them. Read Mind in the Making by James Harvey Robinson. Look at our website. We have a whole list of books on general semantics. Don't try to change everybody. Have them do some of the work.
And if they're really not interested, get off or try different ways of approaching them. You know, you have to remember how you thought of things a long time ago before you were aware of this type of thinking. So you might have to approach them in a simpler manner. But if they're not interested at all, go on to other people who may be more interested. It might be a many-year project for some people you're trying to get to. Whoever is going to be the leader during the transition, what happens should they decide they want to stay in power after the transition?
You're projecting today's values into the future. When the computer gives you when you dial for information, real information, in electronics, mechanics, engineering, structures, you get that kind of information. But you're talking about people with opinions about that are not based on anything. Very little attention will be paid to people who have a lot of opinions based upon ego only. And when you meet with ego, it means words like, oh, that'll never happen. You'll never see man go to the moon. That can't occur. Maybe 1,000 years from now. All that's ego. You drop it, get off.
Do you feel there's going to be a leader to bring us into the resource-based economy, and will they still want power afterwards?
I don't know what a leader means. You have to have answers. How do you prevent auto accidents? How do you increase the yield of the food growth program? How do you feed the people of the world? If you don't have those answers, you're not a leader. And if you have that information, you're working at it. You're not a leader. There's no such thing as a leader or a privileged person. There's people that have more information than others, and they educate others, or they show them evidence as to why they uphold particular kinds of values. The belief that people can talk to one another is another myth. For example, the Jews cannot go to a Nazi meeting and convince them to support the B'nai B'rith. The black people, the Afro-Americans, cannot go to a Ku Klux Klan meeting and share ideas with them because there's no basis in their language and background for sharing ideas. You have to give them another value system, a different method of evaluation, and you can't do that unless they seek that information.
Wouldn't a resource-based economy require more jobs in computer sciences?
During the transition, yes, but once it's established, the answer is no.
Why doesn't Jacque not patent his ideas?
First of all, I don't have the money. I have so many inventions that I can't afford to patent them. I put them out there and a lot of people use them. I hope you understand that. I don't have the money to do that.
A lot of people who come here too ask if we're off the grid or why don't we have solar panels. And we had limited funding, and for so many years we funded this ourselves. And it was either use our money to live pretty well self-sufficiently here, or get equipment, make models, do books and videos, and to get these ideas across. And that's what we decided to do with our money, to make the models, publish our own books. It just because of limited funding, we don't patent things. How does Jacque feel about nursing or fostering civil disobedience against the current status quo?
It will do nothing until this current status quo collapses due to its own inefficiency. then people will be looking for new ideas. Right now, they don't give a damn. Until they lose their houses, their jobs, their medical care, then they will advocate something new. And what they advocate, if it isn't the Venus Project, usually does not work.
But this is a good time to get the information out there. This is very important. While we still can do civil disobedience or talk to groups in streets or use the internet, this is a time to get the information out there about this direction to as many people as possible in any way that we can. How do you incentive people to learn to think critically? That's the way it's written.
What will drive people if they don't have money or reward? The reward is the end of war, the end of poverty, most crimes, and the end of begging for medical care. Everyone will be cared for and educated. There'll be no taxation and no advantage group, no technical elitism or any other kind of elitism. If that isn't incentive enough, then I don't know what is.
Okay, how do you teach people critical thinking, to be fair and open-minded, not intellectually lazy?
You teach them the scientific method, and you strictly stay with it. The scientific method starts out with I don't know. The next phase is to try to find out why some plants grow faster than others. And if you are able to accelerate the plant growth, you might exhaust the soil. Do you allow for all those oncoming pending conditions, or are you just interested in growing plants faster? The future researcher will take into account many interacting variables rather than just growing more food faster.
Would it be helpful to start a physical college or university to train in the careers we need in the Venus Project, and it can make money at the same time?
You don't need a university, you need a meeting place for members that are interested in the resource-based economy. You can educate them. You don't need a school building, but only later on we will have buildings designed to help people understand the operating characteristics of the Venus Project or the resource-based economy.
We're working on many more informational materials, much more informational materials as well. We're doing kind of, I think we're calling it a university course or a course, and that will be going up on the new website. We're doing more videos. We also have tours here where people come on Saturdays, mostly when we're in town, which really almost give people a university course, and mostly a new way of thinking and how to apply the professions that people are taught today in the resource-based economy. Somebody says, I'm kind of afraid of centralization. Would any residential or building be able to be independently?
You're using the word centralization differently than we use it. In the early days, Washington didn't know what was going on in Florida. They didn't know what was going on in the state of Washington or Arizona. So they decentralized. They put information in each state which has different problems. In the future, we will return to centralization. That's hard for people to understand, so listen carefully. When you have the electric generators go on in hospitals to keep the lights going and all the other equipment, in a monetary system, everybody wants to know how much will it cost to do that. That is not the question, really, when you think about it. The question is, do we have the resources to do that? Yes, we do.
Yeah, that can't be done in a monetary system, though. It's not economical. But it's dangerous not to do that. Is it humanly possible to become a generalist because it sounds extremely time-consuming?
Not the way information will be put out in the future. In 3 hours, they can give you more information you get in 3 years in an ordinary university. Which you see when you get here, a tour moves people very fast in many different directions because we have a different method of applying information to the system.
Well, we really appreciate it. I hope it was helpful.
And thank you very much for your questions. I deeply appreciate them, but you have to think about the answers. When you pose a question, you're posing it within today's values. And if you read our books first and then ask questions, you're better off. Read our books, watch our videotapes before you formulate your questions.
Okay, again, thank you.
I want to thank everybody for whatever work you're doing to help promote a resource-based economy and try to teach people what it is in terms they can understand.
Thanks for coming over, and we'll hopefully do one next week.